Do you guys remember the first time that you ever saw Pokemon cards for sale? I'm not saying that necessarily you were interested in Pokemon or really even sealed product at all. I'm really focusing on singles in this video, and we're going to be talking about base set singles in specific. But if you remember the first time you saw Pokemon cards actually for sale, I'm curious what your experience was during that moment in time, because I was thinking the other day about when I first saw base set singles for sale, and this was in like 4th grade or 3rd grade. It was super, super young, but I was really interested in sports at the time, really interested in sports cards. I really love the Milwaukee Brewers. I mean, I still do, but at the time, I was a huge sports cards collector, especially baseball cards. I loved collecting my favorite Milwaukee Brewers cards, just different variants, different versions, things like that. And I remember walking around a flea market at the ripe young age of like 8 or 9 with my friend and his grandparents, who were walking around, and we would go to the sports cards booth because that's what I was really interested in. And I remember looking at this big frame of a bunch of different little monsters, and this was before I even really knew what Pokemon was, and seeing a Charmander sitting there that I was like, why is this card, why do they have this card for $20? Because during the wax era of sports cards, you could buy a lot of your favorite cards for $1 or $2. Cards were relatively cheap when it came to sports cards, but then I'm sitting here looking and I'm like, this card is selling for $20, and I hadn't really heard of Pokemon yet. And then once I started getting more and more into Pokemon, I started understanding the demand a little bit better, and I think that was really the first introduction that we had to scalping, but it wasn't anywhere near as prevalent as it is today because there wasn't really social media to kind of highlight it and talk about it. But you couldn't find base set booster packs anywhere. When Pokemon first introduced their base set booster packs to the United States, it was very hard to find. Anytime KB Toys or Toys R Us would stock them, a lot of people would call up the store, hey, when do you have this product coming in? Because you couldn't really search on the internet like you can today. They would call up the store, and the store would be like, oh, we'll have a restock on Friday. And there would be a line of people that were waiting to kind of buy out the base set booster packs right away, and there wasn't enough supply to kind of meet the demand. And at that time, I remember witnessing and seeing all of these Pokemon cards. You could open up a base set pack that you would buy for basically $3, and all the commons and uncommons alone would sell for at least $5 a piece. And a lot of people were able to just open up a pack, sell the contents, and they would make, quite a bit of money doing that because they were so hard to find. And as I started paying attention more and more to Pokemon a couple of years after the release, the demand started obviously dying down a lot. But as I was getting really into it, I joined a forum online because they didn't have social media like they do today. I remember joining a forum online. I remember joining Pokegym.net, and I remember joining Pokemon Trading Cards Online.net, PTCO at the time, and starting to understand the market a little bit better. And it really started taking off. That's where my interest really got piqued. But finding all these different holographic cards where at the time they had died down in price considerably because demand went down so much and supply went up so much. And that was really kind of where I started understanding the whole investing side of cards a little bit better. But I remember looking at these cards, and even then a base set holo like a Magneton or something selling for $3, $4, $5, which seemed a little bit expensive at the time because most of the time they were selling for only a couple bucks. But I remember buying Lugias, for $15, $20 at the time. And then throughout the years, as I started understanding a little bit more about the whole business side of things, seeing Lugia just not really increase that much. I remember looking in 2015, 2016, 2017 when I was operating a business, buying singles that were from the base set for a few dollars a piece. They hadn't grown that much because demand just wasn't there, but supply was so crazy during the late 90s and early 2000s, and I think we're starting to get a much better understanding of it. If you remember during the pandemic, booster boxes for the base set had gotten up to $27,000, $28,000, and now they've backed off a lot, closer to that $15,000 mark. But at the time, when they were selling for $27,000, $28,000, all these content creators were really hyping up a lot of these vintage products, doing box breaks on Whatnot and on YouTube and all these various channels. And we didn't understand at the time how much supply really existed still from the Wizards of the Coast area. And I think it really shocked a lot of people once people opened up these base set booster boxes thinking, okay, the prices are going to continue to rise because that's another one off the market. But then another case got found, or another booster box got found, or a handful of booster boxes got found, or a storage unit got found with a bunch of different Wizards of the Coast products. And now it's crazy to me, while we look back on those pandemic days, to see how much Wizards of the Coast product just continued to be unveiled into the community, into the market, that really didn't set vintage cards up for the consistent organic growth that I think a lot of people anticipated, especially a lot of those content creators who were talking about Pokemon market. And that's why investing is a very, very sensitive subject and a very tough subject for me to preach, because I'm personally not really an investor when it comes to Pokemon cards. I operate a business. My whole mantra is to buy a product at X cost and sell it at Y cost. And I already know what that Y cost is before I I even buy it at X cost. So when it comes to purchasing booster boxes or seal products from our wholesale distributor, buying it at wholesale cost and then expecting to sell it at market cost or at least at MSRP, if not less than that. So that way I understand, okay, this is what the margin is that I can expect. And it's usually not very good, especially when it comes to seal product. It's much better now that supply isn't nearly what it was, a year ago when they reprinted a ton of different products. But the same thing holds true for a lot of singles. I expect to buy it at X cost, so that way I know I can sell it for Y cost. And when we go over a lot of these different market reviews on different singles, a lot of times I look at this anyways, because the main thing that I want to focus on is, okay, when is the best time? What did I miss out on buying? What does the pattern look like? What does the growth chart look like? So that way I get a good understanding. Is this underpriced right now? Can I buy it at X cost? And I put it into my formula and I put it into my Excel spreadsheet. Okay, if I sell it at the fees, I expect 14% fees. I expect at least 50, 60 cent shipping. Or if it's a more expensive card, I expect at least $4 shipping. What does the cost breakdown look like for that Y cost? What should I expect from my margin? And that's what I really look. I don't worry about how much this single is going to be worth in 5-10 years, because as a business owner, I really want to be able to use that profit margin to be able to invest that money into another area or another segment of the business to constantly burn and turn inventory, so that way I can keep my business afloat. And that's really what this channel kind of works on and teaches and things like that. There are investment ideas and things like that that you may want to take advantage of for the long term, but really when it comes to investing in Pokemon, it can be very difficult, because when we're talking about the supply that they had back in the late 90s or early 2000s, that was very much replicated during the pandemic. We're talking about an additional 9 billion cards that were introduced into the field, with sets being so much bigger now and a lot more attention being paid to ultra rares, to sealed investing, to sealed collecting, things like that. There's a lot of people who put just cases of booster boxes in storage units that they're like, hey, I'm going to put this away for 10, 15 years, so that way my son or my daughter can take advantage of the market 10, 15 years down the road, and supply will be a lot less. While I think that supply will be a lot less and you will be able to sell that for more than what you paid for, I don't think you're going to be able to stash away a case of Evolving Skies now, 25 years down the road, it's going to sell for $28,000. I just don't think that's the case. I could be wrong, and we'll find out in 25 years, and you can let me know in the comments section what you think. But I wanted to look back at some of these vintage singles and see how they've performed over the past year, and really give you a good understanding, especially if you're somebody who doesn't collect a lot of vintage, where the market is for these. Because while a couple of them are very expensive from the base set, for the most part, a lot of them are relatively cheap and didn't really hit a growth pattern until the pandemic happened. I remember buying a lot of these singles in 2015, 20 years after Pokemon came out, 20 years after these cards came out, for $2, $3, $4 for a lot of these base set hollows. It wasn't really until the pandemic happened that a lot of people started paying more attention to vintage, and that's when they skyrocketed, and that's when they went up, where a vintage base set hollow may have went from $2, $3 to $15, $20. So we're going to look at the vintage market, so that way you can get a good understanding of where it's gone over the past year. And it's actually done fairly well. It's rebounded fairly well. If we start out looking at this base set Charizard right here, you can see its low point. It actually hit in September of 2022, where it dropped down to $321.53. Charizard is kind of the difference maker when it comes to base set hollows, because for a while in 2015, 2016, 2017, these were selling for moderately played, lightly played condition for $40, $50. You could buy a near mint one for maybe $80, $90. You could find them on the market pretty easily, and then the pandemic hit, they tripled in price, and now they continue to float. It seems like the market has corrected on them, and that's really what Pokemon is about, finding a correctable market, what it should be selling for based off of that supply and demand mantra on how a business operates. But if you look at the first half of 2022, it was actually a lot higher. It was at one point in time $361.94, which is about 15, 12-ish% higher than what it sold for when it sold in September at its low point. It started to creep up a little bit. You can see it sitting at $355.66 right now, but definitely headed in the upward trajectory. And a lot of these base set hollows are heading in that upward motion, in that upward trajectory, like this Blastoise right here at the beginning of 2022. You can see in March it had dropped down to 104.38, so it's climbed about 20% over the past year. Again, Pokemon is starting to go through a little bit of a resurgence. We remember, if you remember talking about business opening at the kind of the middle of 2022, there was a point in time where Pokemon had really kind of backed off a little bit, and distributors thought they were going to be able to start accepting online retailer applications at the beginning of 2023. That really hasn't happened because demand has started to resurface a little bit, especially with these trainer gallery cards, the Galarian gallery cards, and moving forward with the art rares, especially the Japanese market, which has taken off like crazy. But if you can see here, it's just been consistent growth for a lot of these cards, including this Blastoise right here, sitting currently at 124.58, not too far off of its one-year high of 128.02, but gained about 20% over the past year, so performing extremely well. The Venusaur really started going up at the end of 2022. You can see for the most part, it stayed relatively flat throughout 2022. The first 10 months or so, at one point in time, it had dropped in July all the way down to 75.68, and then started increasing a little bit, started going up a little bit. So these vintage hollows starting to rebound a little bit from where they were during the pandemic. They shot up, and then at the peak of the pandemic, they started coming back down when people started realizing, hey, these are a lot more available than I originally thought, than I originally anticipated, and they went down for a good year and a half where they just continued to drop in price. We may have seen the basement and these start climbing a little bit, but you can see started going up a little bit in July, and then in September stayed relatively flat, and then started spiking, especially when we got to December of 2022. So sitting at $90.32 currently. That's just off of a one-year high of $93.38. If we look at the Alakazam hollow, now pull rates were a lot better in the base set, so that's definitely going to play a factor because you basically got, 10, or you basically got, 12 holographic cards in a base set booster box, and there's only 15 holographic cards to collect. So you could open up, 2-3 booster boxes and basically master the set, which you can't do anymore. But Alakazam really starting to follow that same growth pattern that we saw from the Blastoise at the beginning of February in 2022. It was at $30.58, gained about 30% throughout the year, all the way up to $37.61, so that's about a 20% jump at one point in time, and had gained over 30%, sitting at $42.43. That was back in December. It's backed off a little bit now, sitting at $37.61. The Raichu was at its high point in April of 2022. You can see it hit $39.23 before it really fell down in July of 2022. You can see it hit $28.40, started to gain a little bit of that back, but still a little bit closer to its one-year low than its one-year high, and that's why this vintage market can be a little volatile, and you really have to know what you're doing. So when you're talking about investing, the most important thing that you can do is invest time in research. I was watching Opossum Bud's video the other day where he was talking about paying for investment advice when it comes to Pokemon and not to do it, and I couldn't agree more with a lot of things that he was saying because it just doesn't make sense. There's so much free content out there, and once you start getting a good understanding of where this vintage market is, or really where any Pokemon market is, you're going to be able to operate a lot of this on your own. You should be able to invest a lot of your money and time into what you like and what you enjoy, but don't worry about where it's going to be 25, 30 years down the road, because if you're looking at some of these singles, like this Raichu, it's sitting at $33.82. I mean, that's not a huge increase of maybe what you paid for it back in 1998, 1999, somewhere around there, but sitting at $33.82 currently, not too much higher than its one-year low, which it hit in July of 2022. The Zapdos started to peak a little bit in March before dying back down. You can see it hit a one-year low in July, despite at one point in March being closer to that $28, $29 price point. In July, it dropped all the way down to $21.05. That's its one-year low before starting to rise a little bit in August, then coming back down in September, and now it's hit a really big peak through the end, through Q4 of 2022. You can see in December it jumped all the way up to $30.54, and now it's settled at $30.12. So we'll see if it kind of hangs out at that point in time, or at that marker, or kind of backs off a little bit. Mewtwo, one of the more popular cards in the base set, but you don't see a lot of growth over the past year when it comes to the Mewtwo. It's hovered really close to that mid-20s area, upper 20s area. You can see in February 2022 it started out at its low point of $22.87, and then in April already it shot up to about $26. So it did go up and down a little bit over the next several months, where at one point in time it hit a one-year high of $32.82 before backing down to about $26. But you can see only about a 10% difference kind of fluctuating there over the last year, now sitting at $30.21. The Gyarados has had some really good success over the past 6 or 7 months. At one point in time in July it had dropped all the way down to $15.61, but that's coming off of a beginning of 2022, so Q1 of 2022, where it jumped all the way up to $26, dropped down to $15, and now it's consistently gone up. You can see in December it peaked, hit $29.22, which is almost double the price of its one-year low. It's backed off a little bit, sitting at $26.26 currently. The Nidoking, kind of the same thing. You can see in the beginning of 2022, in Q1, it jumped all the way up to $25 before July crashing all the way down to $16.43. You see a lot of the July as kind of the basement for a lot of these. Nidoking hit its basement, retracement, hit its floor at $16.43 at the beginning of July before jumping all the way closer to that $25 mark, backed off a little bit, sitting at $24.75 currently, just off of a one-year high of $25. If we look at the Polyrath, same thing, just a different card. It was right around $20 and then backed off in July, fell all the way down to $12.03, and now we've seen some consistent growth over the past 7 months or so, and this is what we're talking about, that resurgence with Pokemon and what's happened over the last 7 months, sitting at $23.63 currently. That's a one-year high for Polyrath. Chansey, it's kind of the same thing as far as its one-year low goes. It hit $17.73 in July. That was coming off of a little bump that it had in April, all the way up to $24. Then it started spiking a little bit in August, September, where it jumped all the way up to $28.63. Now it's backed off a little bit, hanging right between its one-year high and one-year low at $17.73. The Clefairy has just been up and down, a lot of peaks and valleys all over the place over the past year. You can see its one-year high it actually hit in March of 2022, where it jumped all the way up to $22.74. Overall, only about a 15% difference between its one-year high and one-year low over the past year, and went all the way down closer to that $19, $20 mark in July before jumping back up to $22 in August, and then diving all the way back down in September, back to that one-year low of $19.25, currently sitting at $22.11 currently. This Magneton that we were talking about before also hit a one-year low in July of $14.36, stayed relatively flat up until October, November, where it started spiking a little bit. It did hit $20.94 in December before backing off a little bit in January, and now it's currently sitting at $19.63. The Ninetales, which is a beautiful card, hit a one-year high back in February. This is kind of an outlier here because it has spent the majority of the past 7 months closer to a one-year low than a one-year high, and it actually hit a one-year high at the beginning of 2022 of $25.35. But you can see in July it hit really close to that one-year low, right around that $13 mark, stayed relatively flat then all the way up until October, November, where it started to gain a little bit of it back, sitting at $18.20, but still a little closer to its one-year low than its one-year high. And then Hitmonchan, I believe this is the last one that we're going to look at because this is the last holo in the base set. In February of 2022, it's hovering right around that $15 mark. It dropped all the way to a one-year low in July of $10.46, stayed relatively flat until October, November, like what we saw from some of these other cards before it spiked up to $17.32. It's backed off very little, sitting at $16.19 currently. So you'll have to let me know what you think of the vintage market right now, especially when it pertains to base set. You can kind of take that as a barometer of the amount of supply that we've had provided to us over the past couple years. However, the main thing to remember is pull rates were way better back then, so it'll be very interesting to see how the market is moving forward. Also, obviously, the artwork has changed so much with a lot of these alternate arts, special art rares, things like that, a lot different than what it was back then. But let me know what you think of the vintage market. If you like the content, please hit that subscribe button down below, leave a like and a comment because it goes a very long way for the algorithm. We'll be back on Tuesday going over some maybe forgotten alternate arts that people don't necessarily think about too often. So I hope you come back for that one. Until then, guys, thanks so much for everything. Peace.